ground war flipped in a heartbeat when a Bradley punched in first and smothered a dug-in firing line. With targets fixed by clean coordinates, an Abrams fired twice. The strongpoint collapsed, and infantry had a door they could walk through. Columns that looked unstoppable then froze mid-road, as small eyes in the sky chose what burned next. You will see smoke and steel, but the real engine is timing, coordination, and cost per hit. A layered kill chain now snaps together. Scouts find, fires strike, armor finishes, and when it closes, the map bends. This is not about owning more tanks. It is about who finds first, who decides faster, and who pays less for the kill. Small drones cut at weak points. One blast triggers 3, and the budget turns into a weapon. Crews live, or don't, because of where the ammo sits and how a vehicle vents its worst seconds. Stay with us for one operation that shows the pattern without giving the plan away. If you track weapons, battles, and the politics behind them, you're in the right place. Like, share, and subscribe to Military Force so you never miss the next strike. The breach started with a Bradley pushing straight toward the firing line so it could smother the dug-in guns. It used short bursts from the 25mm to pin crews, and it walked coax fire along the parapet to keep heads down. The driver kept a steady crawl, because a smooth hull makes better shooting and cleaner sight pictures. Thermal sights picked out hot shapes behind sandbags, and the gunner painted those windows with careful tracing fire. A small drone fed the crew a live map, and every call-out went by clock and grid, so there was no guesswork. The team held its missiles, since the job was to mark and suppress, not to waste heavy shots on concrete. By the end of the first minute, the strong point was fixed in place, and the door for a killing blow was open. That is when armor takes over, because precision after suppression changes the whole rhythm. The Abrams waited on clear coordinates, and the call came clean with building face, elevation, and range. 2 high-explosive tank rounds followed, and both struck where the fire from the Bradley had just traced the line. The first impact broke the load-bearing corner, and the second tore the inner rooms into open air. Dust rolled down the street. The return fire died in an instant, and the position lost all shape. Infantry moved up on a planned lane, checked for secondary shooters, and took the ground with controlled steps. The clock mattered here, because a short window after shock is when defenders are least able to react. With the breach secured, the lane was safe for follow-on movement, and the assault could widen without delay. That shift from contact to control is the reason coordination beats raw firepower. This method pairs an IFV that opens the door with an MBT that finishes the job, and it cuts out waste. Sensors on the Bradley find and fix, while the Abrams converts that data into fast, clean effects. The kill chain shrinks from minutes to seconds, and the target dies before new orders can travel down the trench. Deconfliction stays simple because roles do not blur, and the radio net carries short, exact lines. Cost per hit falls because the heavy round lands only when the aim point is proven. Risk also falls because the Bradley never lingers after the Abrams commits, and the street stays under friendly timing. When timing stays tight, initiative stays ours, and initiative turns into ground gained. The urban setting makes this approach even more valuable, since walls hide threats and seconds decide survival. Direct fire punches through cover that would soak up small arms, and it does so with fewer shots. Crews keep their exposure low by using planned angles, smoke on demand, and a strict limit on stationary moments. Collateral damage is held down by striking load-bearing points, not by collapsing whole blocks without need. Civilians are steered off the lane early, and the infantry clears only what matters to the tactical aim. When the breach holds and the block is quiet, the fight moves, because momentum is a weapon in itself. As this door opened for the infantry, another lesson took shape on a nearby road, where a single drone would stall a column. The armored push on the other axis collapsed the moment an FPV struck the lead vehicle and killed the pace. The column had thrown a thick smoke screen to hide shapes, yet the drone rode low, scanned for heat, and cut into the nose tank with a shaped charge. Tracks jammed, Engines stalled, and spacing vanished as drivers braked hard to avoid a blind collision. Dismounts spilled out, crews looked for cover, and the road turned into a line of soft targets caught in the open. Radio traffic spiked, orders conflicted, and the formation lost its head in under a minute. The stall mattered because a stopped column is easy to map and easier to hit, which is why the next move belonged to indirect fire. Artillery punished the pause, and it did so with corrected bursts rather than blind volume. Forward observers pushed clean grids, guns set fuses, and the first salvos landed to block the flanks, not to chase fleeing silhouettes. High explosive rounds cut through thin armor, while airburst patterns ripped antennae and optics that survived the shock. Mobility kills turned into hard kills as flames reached fuel, and crews abandoned hulls that could not pull back. The rate of fire stayed steady, because short corrections beat heavy barrages when the target cannot maneuver. Once the line broke and the survivors scattered, the task shifted from disruption to removal, which is why the final tool came from the air. A dedicated attack drone closed in to make sure the abandoned BMP would never return to service. The operator avoided thick screens and chose the rear hatch, then dropped a compact charge into the ammo space where thin plates meet racks. The blast ignited propellant, overpressure blew the hatches wide, and a jet of flame punched through the turret ring. Secondary explosions followed in quick steps as stored rounds cooked off and reactive tiles popped one by one. Sensors watched for lingering heat to confirm the kill, and the wreck settled into a burn that no repair crew could reverse. By turning a mobility kill into a guaranteed loss, the drone saved shells, saved time, and cleared the route for follow-on work, which leads straight to the lesson on cost and tempo. The cost curve now favors the side that spends little to destroy much, and FPVs make that math visible. A $2,000 to $3,000 drone can stop a vehicle worth millions, and a second or third strike often rides the same path to finish the job. Each clean hit shortens the cleanup phase, reduces ammunition use, and lowers exposure for crews who would otherwise close in. The psychological weight is real, because drivers know a thin mistake can invite a fireball within seconds. Commanders care because tempo is money. When seconds are saved, more ground can be shaped with fewer shots. With the road silent and wrecks confirmed, attention turns to the shield above the front, because killing the eyes and missiles that guard the sky opens the door for the next phase. Recon drones tipped the balance when they found a camouflaged M3 air defense unit worth tens of millions. Thermal cues bled through netting, antenna shadows betrayed the radar mast, and track marks ran from the tree line to a small clearing. The feed showed generators, a command shelter, and 2 launchers hiding under cut branches. Operators marked grids with clean timestamps and flagged the site as medium-range SAM, likely Book M3, pending full confirmation. The picture was strong enough to move from watching to tasking, which set the targeting chain in motion. Targeting moved fast because the kill chain was short and roles were clear. The drone team pushed coordinates, elevation, and aim points. The fire cell checked deconfliction and picked a unitary GMLRS profile. Weather, wind, and distance went into the calculator, and the battery accepted a time-on-target window. Traffic on the net stayed tight, since short calls reduce delay and prevent crosstalk. With checks complete, launch authority shifted to the guns, which meant the strike phase could begin. The first rockets lifted in a clean ripple so the warheads would arrive within seconds of each other. Flight time felt long on the screen, yet the math only needed minutes to close the gap. Impact cues showed a direct hit on the radar shelter, followed by a strike on a launcher parked nose out. A third detonation broke the generator line, and sparks under the tarp flashed as cables burned. With the radar blind and power gone, the site had no eyes, which prepared the ground for assessment. Battle damage assessment used multiple sensors, so one bad angle could not mislead the team. Thermal video showed the radar truck cooling fast while a steady burn took the shelter apart from inside. Spotters saw the crew scatter into a drainage ditch, and no new emissions came up on the scanner. A delayed flare popped near the launcher racks, likely from cooked electronics or stowed flares. With those signs aligned, the cell graded the target as neutralized, which opened a window for follow-on moves. Operationally, killing a medium-range shield changes how units fight in that sector. Recon drones can fly longer tracks, loiter closer to artillery targets, and hand off coordinates with less jamming. Gun lines can push forward because the risk from interceptors drops when the local radar is silent. Ground units gain freedom of movement, since the threat ring that once covered roads and crossings is now full of holes. As those holes widen, planners look for fresh pressure points, which points toward movement against exposed armor. The exchange also shows why cost and tempo now matter as much as range. A small number of guided rockets turned a high-value system into scrap, while friendly crews stayed far from returning fire. The identification remains careful, labeled M3, most likely Book M3, based on layout and mass type, because fog and camouflage can distort a frame. Even with that caution, the effect is clear. A costly air defense node was removed with modest spend and little time. With local skies quieter and the map tilting, attention shifts to ground ambush tactics that punish armored groups moving without cover. The ambush worked because the mine belt forced the Russian line to halt and exposed the second vehicle to direct fire. The lead tank hit a buried charge, lost its track, and blocked the lane, while drivers behind it braked hard and closed the gaps. A Leopard already in a hull-down nest took the shot at the next tank, aimed center mass and punched straight through. Fire and smoke filled the choke point, and the approach route turned into a kill zone in seconds. That opening set the conditions for deliberate standoff fire to shape the rest of the fight. Standoff mattered because distance gave the crew time to pick targets and manage ammunition with care. Range sat near 1.5 kilometers, which kept return fire unreliable and kept optics steady. The gunner cycled from sabot to high explosive as the picture changed, since thin armor needs blast while heavier hulls need darts. Thermal sights marked engines, turrets, and doors. And each splash landed where heat and angles met. This steady cadence made the road predictable for follow-on shots, which pushed the formation toward collapse. Once leadership lost the front pair, coordination broke and protection fell apart across the column. Infantry climbed out fast, tried to use smoke as cover, and drifted toward nearby houses to escape open ground. Support trucks swerved off the shoulder, while one armored carrier turned sideways and trapped vehicles behind it. A wounded APC tried to reverse, clipped a ditch, and stalled with its rear ramp half open. This break in cohesion invited deliberate work against the softer links still within view. The Leopard then cut the line at the joints, because removing carriers and repair assets stops any chance of recovery. High explosive rounds smashed an APC at the road bend, and fragments tore through exposed wheels and antennas. A follow-up sabot round hit a recovery vehicle, which denied the convoy a tow and forced crews to abandon more hulls. Another controlled shot broke a command van, and radios went silent along the lane. With the backbone gone, only scattered guns remained, which made the next choices even simpler. The crew kept a tight rhythm that looked like live fire training, yet served a narrow tactical aim. Short bursts from the Cokes pinned dismounts at walls, while the main gun cleared any position that started to shoot back. Smoke from the loader masked a shift to a second firing angle, and the commander checked range again before authorizing another pair. The tank held behind cover between shots, so silhouettes were small and timing stayed theirs. This measured pace protected the crew and kept pressure on the route, which opened space for infantry to secure the block. The lesson is that a mine belt plus precision fire turns speed into a liability for any unit that stacks too close. A single blast removes momentum, and a clean long-range shot removes confidence, while panic does the rest. The price per kill stays low when gunnery is disciplined, and the number of rounds remains modest when aim points are real. Survivors lose faith in their armor once they see secondary fires, and commanders lose options once recovery assets are gone. With the roads silenced and the survivors drifting into streets, the fight shifts toward urban strongpoints where specialized ammunition and crew protection decide who holds the next corner. Leopard crews gained the edge in the city because specialized obstacle-breaching rounds break hard cover without wasting shots. They scanned windows, doors, and stairwells with thermal sights, then used controlled bursts from the Cokes to pin down teams before firing high explosive at load-bearing points. Walls cracked, firing lanes opened, and corner threats faded as dust filled the rooms. The tank stayed in hull down where it could, shifted angles between shots, and used short smoke to mask any long traverse. Each strike reduced resistance while keeping exposure low, and that steady rhythm turned strong points into entry lanes, which is why the urban phase favors precise gunnery backed by strict movement rules. Urban work demands short cycles from find to fire, and that cycle gets even shorter when drones feed clean cues. Small quadcopters hovered above rooflines, marked hot barrels, and flagged tripods hidden behind curtains. Leopard gunners read those markers, aimed at joists or pillars, and punched tidy holes that dropped entire rooms without collapsing a block. Infantry flowed behind armor with ladders, shields, and breaching charges, then cleared only the spaces needed to hold the street. That method keeps momentum inside the block, which sets up the wider lesson about how modern threats punish tanks that store risk beside the crew. T-90M losses under FPV pressure reveal a clear weak map that operators exploit with simple tools and sharp timing. Pilots dive on the seam where the turret meets hull, or slip a grenade through a half-open hatch, or drive a shaped charge into the engine bay. Overpressure blows hatches wide, flames shoot through the ring, and secondary blasts follow as propellant cooks off. Mesh cages, cables, and extra plates help against glancing hits, yet they do little when the strike reaches the ammo stack. This pattern repeats because design choices move danger inward, and that choice writes the outcome when a small drone finds a narrow gap. Western designs change that outcome by moving heat and fragments away from people when the worst second arrives. Blow-off panels vent the burst upward, not into the crew, and fire suppression buys the seconds needed to step out alive. A damaged Leopard may burn out its ready rack, yet the crew often exits with radios still talking and optics still moving. Survivability then becomes combat power, since trained teams can recrew another hull and keep the plan on time. When crews live, tempo lives with them, and tempo is the currency that buys each block in a city fight. These technical truths shape tactics, because the FPV threat forces Russian armor to bunch under cover, which creates targets for precision tanks. Vehicles stack near walls and under bridges to hide from drones, but that stacking narrows lanes and blocks recovery paths. Leopard or Abrams crews wait outside the kill box, choose standoff ranges, and cut the convoy at the joints with measured fire. FPVs keep the pressure from above, while direct fire removes whatever tries to move below, and the two layers reinforce each other with little waste. When pressure comes from sky and street at the same time, defenders lose options and time, which is why control of the city shifts to the side that links drones, guns, and armor into one short, reliable chain. Short kill chains win because they cut time, lower cost per hit, and leave no space for recovery. When scouts, fires, and armor act as one, precision beats mass and tempo beats distance. Each clean strike removes a node, breaks a route, and shrinks the map the enemy can use. That is why columns freeze, strong points fall, and crews lose faith after the first secondary blast. The message is simple yet hard to ignore. Russia must thicken, SHORAD and EW at the front, speed up mine clearing, and close the gaps at hatch, turret seam, and belly. Ukraine will keep pressure with FPV, guided rockets, and Western MBTS, because this mix locks the pace and strips each pocket layer by layer. The near-term balance turns on execution, not slogans. Watch how many hours Russian supply lines stay open without forced pauses, because open windows show who controls tempo. Track secondary explosions on T-series hulls, since repeated cook-offs reveal where design risks remain. Compare crew survival rates, because trained teams who live can fight again and keep plans on time. Measure how fast UAV coordinates reach guns, as a shorter handoff means fewer shots for the same effect. If these indicators tilt one way for several days, the map will tilt with them, and momentum will follow. Remember that weather, battery stocks, and rotation cycles can swing the rhythm at short notice. If rain-ground drones or jamming improves, the window narrows. If logistics falter or fresh crews arrive late, it widens. Read the signals, not headlines, because small shifts in timing decide big outcomes for everyone. For clear maps, straight numbers, and field-level analysis, like, share, and subscribe to Military Force so you never miss the next update.